Our presentation studied the associations between social isolation and memory decline. As we've learned in class, increased social engagement predicts greater cognitive decline. As we age, there are several psychological and biological changes that occur within our neural network. One of these changes that our study assessed was cognitive decline. Cognitive decline can affect impairments in memory, learning ability, cognitive flexibility, judgment, and decision-making.
Background and theoretical framework. Previous studies have associated social isolation and cognitive decline but did not test for the direction of the effects. Memory tends to decline over the second half of the life course and is one of the greatest worries older people have about aging. Social isolation and poor cognition are associated due to the lack of social stimulation on the brain. An example of a lack of social stimulation on the brain would be the concept of use it or lose it. This means that one must engage in and practice the inability or risk losing it. If we do not practice strategies, we risk a steep cognitive decline. In our study, social isolation is affected by social engagement. Previous research has shown that people who are less socially active experience memory loss. This theory describes the concept of latent cognitive reserve, whereas higher levels of engagement create stronger neural connections. The more we socialize and engage in human interaction, the better chance we have at improving our cognitive abilities. Our hypothesis was that a higher level of social isolation causes an increase in cognitive decline.
Experimental methods. This is a study conducted by the English Longitudinal Study of Aging consisting of men and women aged 50 years or older. The sample size consisted of 11,392 people being interviewed for the first wave of ELSA with a 67% response rate. Responders were then re-interviewed every 2 years, and latent change score models were used. Data from waves 1 through 6 were used. In Wave 6, data was available from about 42 to 48% of men and 44 to 52% of women who participated in Wave 1. Participants were asked to learn 10 common but unrelated words. Mean score was normally distributed for immediate and delayed recall. Social isolation was measured using an index of whether the participant lived alone, had less than monthly contact, face-to-face, telephone, or written contact, other family members or friends, and if they were members of any organizations, groups, etc. Score of 0 to 5 was used. The higher the score, the more socially isolated. This distribution was somewhat skewed. Extended latent change score model was used to test the acceleration of change between social isolation and cognitive decline.
Authors' findings: association between social isolation and memory decline is driven by the effect of social isolation on memory performance. Men with a high social isolation score of 4 or above experienced a memory decline of 0.9 points, which was 18% over 2 years. Men with average isolation score of 1 experienced a memory decline of 0.3 points, which is 6% over 2 years. On the other hand, women with a large increase in social isolation over time had a steeper decrease in memory. When isolation increased 2 points for women, memory decline in the next 2 years was on average 1 point, which was also 18%.
Real-world implications. Social isolation and lack of stimulation can have many detrimental effects, such as depression and stress, which can in turn have an effect on one's cognitive function. Some questions to consider are: did you notice any changes in your cognitive functioning when you isolated during quarantine? And since there is an increased risk of cognitive decline with aging, what are some changes you can make to your routine to maintain your cognitive functioning? This concludes our presentation. Here's our reference page.